Hello. Some of us have no problem saying no to others and displeasing others and asking for what we want, and yet some of us have issues with saying no and displeasing others, and we become gun-shy when we ask for what we want. Today, I want to explore this topic further and explain why this may be happening and what you can do about it. The ability to say no seems to come very easily to some people. They simply say what is on their mind and they don't seem to sweat it or feel anything when they actually say no to somebody else. It seems like it comes naturally to them to have the ability to draw their lines in the sand and protect their space and their boundaries. And yet some of us really struggle with it, and when we say no, we feel like we have hurt the other side. Now, if you are in the latter category, I think it's important for you to understand why this may be happening in your life. And I will say that the root of this so-called wound goes back to your childhood. So I ask you to look back into your childhood and see where you made the decision to play it safe and compromise or sacrifice your opinion, what matters to you, and also, when did you decide that saying no is not a beneficial habit to have or a useful habit to have? Now, the first thing you want to do is, if you are constantly telling yourself, I know I do that and I shouldn't do that, the first thing you want to do is to actually quit doing that. The reason I say that is because you're already doing it. So you saying, no, I shouldn't do it, is only going to add to your misery instead of allowing you to be with what's surfacing. So I want you to be with what is surfacing for you when you feel like you are not able to say no, and you are rejecting that ability to say no to a situation. Meaning, you are saying, I should have the ability to say no to others. That is not the point. The point is you are unable to say no and you're struggling with it internally. So take a moment to actually be with what is arising when you are put in a situation where part of you wants to say no and the other part overrides that part and instead turns it into something that is not the case, which means you end up saying something like, I shouldn't be saying no in this situation. So as I mentioned, this goes back to childhood, somewhere along the line where we actually took the risk of displeasing some of the authority figures, one or more of the authority figures in our life. And as a result of doing that, we got less than desirable results. We were rejected or we were challenged as to why we did that. Now, every person's story will be different in this. And what I want you to recognize is that it's just a story. Because the truth of the matter is, anytime you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. And anytime you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. So you are caught in a tailspin, in a circular loop within your mind, and the mind does not have certainty in that moment. When the mind doesn't have certainty, you are going to feel unsure, doubtful of yourself. You're going to feel like you have compromised and you're not going to have resolution in your mind. So it's important from the standpoint of your mind for you to have certainty. So identify all the benefits that you are getting by going along in the situation instead of saying no, and acknowledge those benefits and accept that that's why you have been saying yes instead of no. Because when you're saying no, when you're not willing to say no, you're saying yes to something. So what is that something that you are saying yes to? What is the expectation you have when you say yes instead of no, or become silent instead of no? Because silence is not neutral territory when it comes to something like this. Silence is you actually going along with something because now you have basically said what I feel and want does not matter, and I'm going to go along in this case. And by going along, what is it that you're getting that you are wanting to keep in your life? So go through the 7 or 8 dimensions of life, whatever you believe exists, and identify the benefits in all 7 or 8 dimensions of your life and get very clear on why you're doing this. The other thing I also want you to do is I want you to look further and deeper at what is the fear, the deep-rooted fear. What are you afraid of losing as a result of saying no? Because when we choose not to speak up for ourselves, and when we choose to say yes, even when we mean to say no, and we just go along with something, it's because we're expecting benefits and we are afraid of seeing something outside of benefits. This is you being too addicted to your own comfort and unwilling to actually take the risk of saying no and experiencing the fear that you believe will manifest as a result of you saying no in this situation. So now once you get clear on what benefits you anticipate, your mind will start to calm down. And when your mind calms down, you'll have more clarity on what is the deep-rooted childhood pattern that you are continuously trying to avoid in your life that keeps surfacing. Because I will promise you this one thing: if you are not authentic to yourself and you continue to say yes when you actually want to say no, the universe will keep on serving you up situations where your authenticity is challenged until you start to realize that your energy is contracting and you're feeling horrible on the inside. So feeling is an indicator of how that feels. So if you're feeling tightness in your chest, if you're feeling like something is not feeling good in you, and you're feeling miserable by saying yes, those are all indications that you have overridden something in yourself, your authenticity, namely in this case. And so that is biofeedback mechanism for you to look at and for you to honestly bring in front of your awareness, I want to say. So you're becoming more conscious, and then ask yourself the question, do you want to continue to play the game that you have always played in the past? Because in the past, that might have served you. There might have been a role for it. It might have even helped you to get where you are today. But in the current moment, the real question is, does it always serve you? There may be situations where it still serves you, and if that's the case, you may choose to keep that. But if it doesn't serve you, then you owe it to yourself to look at why you continue to say yes when you actually want to say no. So authenticity is about you recognizing where you are in this moment. It doesn't mean that you are going to go back 10 years and reverse what happened in 10 years back. It means you're going to look at where you are right now in your evolution and take steps to allow that evolution to come forward so that you can present yourself in a more authentic way from this point on. So when you can do this with an awareness of which context you want to keep your ability to say yes even when you know that it's actually compromising your authenticity, you actually start to take some of your power back by being more aware of how and when you are responding to situations. And the more you keep doing that, the more you start to recognize how you've built up layers upon layers upon layers of inauthenticity and saying yes when you really mean no, and then express frustration at others because you are unable to say no to others. Okay, so that is the key point. It's about you taking control back on the situation within yourself. You can never control somebody else's response or reaction to what you do. You can only control your response to yourself, your reaction to situations. So I invite you to take a deeper look. This is not always easy because childhood patterns are very deeply embedded in us, and sometimes it brings us to a space of letting go of that previously held idea of ourselves and our emotions. So give yourself a safe space and find out where you are not living authentically. I invite you to take my assessment, which is completely free. It'll help you to look at different areas of your life and see where you actually live authentically and where you choose to not live authentically, whether that is in life, love, or leadership. This is a very useful assessment. It doesn't take very long, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, maybe even 6 minutes. But it's a really important step for you to actually start becoming more aware of who you're being and how authentically you're living your life. Have a good day.